Today's guest is someone who's not loud online, but is making real moves behind the scenes. Andrew's building a private portfolio across real estate, stocks, cryptocurrency, and e commerce. And he's doing it quietly, intentionally, and on his terms. Today, we'll talk about where he's investing, how he's doing it, how he thinks about risk, and what it really looks like to build multiple streams of income without chasing the trends or the hype. If you're ready to think beyond the traditional 9 to 5 job, or if you just want to think about how to grow your wealth smarter, today's episode is for you. Andrew, welcome to MyFinJourney.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate it. Appreciate that intro.
You're too kind. Andrew, if we were to dive right in, if you were meeting somebody on the elevator and you just wanted to give them your whole life story in 5 minutes, what would you tell them? How did you get to where you are today?
A great question. I would say first and foremost, it's just about being authentically you. I believe that in business and in life in general, the one advantage that we all have is that you're one of one. There's nobody that will be like you or ever was like you. So I feel like that's the first and foremost thing I would say. Two, I would say I invest in real estate and multifamily real estate to be exact. And right now we're just buying and selling commercial and industrial properties and basically looking to expand into different markets. Right now I'm focused mainly in the DMV market, which is Washington, D.C., Maryland, Virginia.
Beautiful, beautiful. And Andrew, for you, why is authenticity so important?
I would say it's so important because it really focuses on everybody's unique strengths. And I feel like it's the thing that adds value to society. Doing something that's unique, like something that nobody else has seen, I believe has more demand, is more scarce, so more people want it. But at the same time, within that, I really believe you can find within those uniquenesses a lot of similarities with people. And I feel like being authentically you and putting your unique story and journey out there, believe it or not, even if you think it's small, even if you think you haven't been through anything, even if you think, you're not worthy, believe it or not, people will relate to you, especially with the global, world that we live in now with social media. Just putting your story out there can help anybody. And so that's the reason why I'm doing this podcast with you. The reason really why I do anything, because if it just helps one person, then it's definitely worth it.
I love that. It's so simple, but it really rings true. So Andrew, help us understand, what are you doing aside from real estate? How are you
Aside
building,
from real estate,
multiple streams of income?
well, yeah, just to kind of give you a quick journey of really just my entrepreneurial career. I started back in real estate in 2008. So this was kind of when the market had crashed and stuff. I was just getting out of college. So the only thing I really had was sales and marketing experience. Really just getting fired from my last sales job. I decided I just wanted to be an entrepreneur and work for myself because, I've read a lot of books. The first book I ever read about being an entrepreneur actually was Nothing Down by Robert G. Allen. I might be dating myself. A lot of people may not know that book. And he also wrote another book called Multiple Streams of Income. So I really just dove into those two books, found a great mentor in real estate. And from there, just started wholesaling properties, started doing some flips, and eventually started building a residential portfolio. Kind of fast forward now in real estate, I've kind of taken my focus and put it more on commercial real estate. And the reasons why, I just love that it's really just a more of a team sport because of the prices of the assets are higher. There's more people that can kind of get their hands in the pot and help out, especially when you're beginning. You really need that. You need people that have experience and that you can kind of piggyback on. So that was really important for me. And then so now, kind of fast forwarding now, since I've been focusing more on multifamily, I transitioned into learning other skills. Specifically, I've learned how to trade options and futures, and I'm also doing a personal development online business that's in the genesis stage of it. But that's mainly focused on helping entrepreneurs and investors, that I basically kind of met along the way in my network. So all of these streams of income kind of piggyback off each other, and they kind of I really just wanted to focus on building that skill first and foremost, just any skill as far as like marketing, sales, a high priority income generating skill is like trading. It's a lot of risk in that too, but when you really have the right mentors and you have the right community around you and you have a really, really great work ethic, you can definitely depend on that. And then kind of just to finish up, I started the personal development business just really out of just people asking me. Honestly, I haven't even marketed it very seriously. Like I said, I'm in the genesis stages of it, but it's mostly focused on taking a holistic view of helping entrepreneurs develop a routine in the morning that keeps them very efficient, very effective throughout their day. So that's kind of where I am with those multiple streams of income. And I'm always open to learning more, networking with more people. I believe that's, how we all win.
Love that, Andrew. And I want to take a deeper dive on what you're saying because it sounds like the coaching program that you're in the genesis of building out, it sounds like people are asking you about their morning routine. And I'm also an entrepreneur. I'm also always thinking about growing. And I'm also somebody who's always looking at my blind spots and trying to identify them to then address them and improve 1% every day. So when these people are asking you about their morning routine or about your morning routine, why do you feel like that's so relevant for people? Why do you feel like that's a blind spot that maybe people don't realize that they need to address?
That's a great question. I would say that it's just because it's very, very subtle, right? And it deals with more of the intricacies and the nuances of our minds, the complexity of us as beings. Instead of just, when I first started making money, being younger, it was so much about just getting the most money, getting the most dollar. And I feel like that's just not sustainable for the long term. And I feel like the idea behind focusing on a morning routine is to build consistency, and like what we were saying, off camera before, about just getting 1% better every day instead of trying to, for example, I'll give you a great example of something like going to the gym. Instead of going, I see people all the time, they'll go into the gym, they'll get on the treadmill and they'll be on there for like 5 hours. That's just not sustainable in one day, but if you get in there and you just, for the first week, you're on there for 10 minutes every single day. That is sustainable. That's something you can leverage. That's something that you can compound. And I believe that morning routine done throughout a long period of time, even though they're small things, can basically, to me, make your life more efficient, help you use your time better, make you more effective. Honestly, too, it makes you more joyful and blissful because I've seen that my morning routine is kind of the backbone of what refreshes me, kind of what rejuvenates me and gets me going to start. So I would say that.
I love that, Andrew. It feels like the most growth happens in the subtleties of life. And I really want to dive deeper. But before I do that, I want to tell the audience if you're listening to this and if you're inspired in terms of how to level up your income stream, in terms of how to grow more efficiently, in terms of how to get 1% better, like Andrew is saying, hit the follow button, subscribe to the channel, like this episode, and share it with a friend who can also benefit from it. Because every week we bring you real conversations that create real lasting value. So Andrew, you're mentioning how we need to grow more efficiently, how the morning routine is one of those avenues to grow. You also mentioned about learning high value, high income skills. You mentioned real estate, you mentioned trading. What was the first skill that you learned? I know you mentioned, the sales and marketing. So maybe take us back to that point. Andrew just having graduated college, what his mindset was and what ultimately changed your approach to scaling.
That's a great question. I would say coming out of college, well, just to tell you before, I was an athlete growing up. So I played football, baseball, and basketball in high school and ended up playing college football. So for me, I was at a time where it was a huge life shift for me. I knew that my football career was over, so I wasn't going to be able to continue that. So I was actually a little bit down, and I was looking for a little bit of identity. So after that, the first thing I did after graduating was get immediately just into a sales job. And I feel like that was the first crucial skill that I learned. Is just learning how to sell. I'm just basically being your authentic self. The first sales job I had was actually selling ink and toner to companies for going door to door. So I felt like even though at first I was young and maybe I just wanted to make a lot of money, looking back at it now, I see that it built a lot of character. It built a lot of those internal skills that we've been talking about that we said are so subtle but are so crucial to your success. And to kind of fast forward after that, I got more into doing phone sales. I got hired by a company in Philadelphia, actually, in the city where I went to college at Temple. And at that job, it was really, really great because I loved the fact that I was learning now to sell over the phone as opposed to going door to door. And I definitely noticed the differences in those. So to kind of sum it up, that was the first skill that I ever learned, was just about marketing and sales. And looking at it now, I would say that I translated those sales skills over into real estate, and seeing it now, really marketing and sales is just really key to any business, as any business owner knows. It doesn't really matter what you're selling. For us, we're buying and selling real estate, but if you were buying, selling trinkets or, hats or t-shirts, just having that core skill of knowing how to market, knowing how to advertise, especially in the new age where social media is so crucial, content is crucial, learning about paid ads and sort. So to kind of answer and to tell the audience, the number one skill I definitely would recommend is to learn marketing and sales first, because it basically translates really into real estate business. If you're buying and selling real estate or any other business, you can really talk.
I love that, Andrew. I kind of want to dive deeper into the football, into what position you were playing, into your view of failure and overcoming adversity. So help unpack that for me. Help unpack, your mentality, if you don't mind.
Sure. I would say number one with my mentality, just from all my experiences, is that I definitely have a very inclusive and holistic mindset. I definitely don't take anything for granted and know that everything is connected. So I always look at it from that holistic lens. And then two, a lot of the traits that I've seen from like a lot of successful people, a lot of some of my mentors is having that sense of urgency and really having that propensity just to stay in the now moment and to do things now and to be present and not to wait, not to kind of sabotage yourself or procrastinate, and just really try to do everything now. And that kind of tied into with also being able to prioritize, because you do want to do everything in the present moment and you do want to do it now, but you'll also have different priorities. For example, like, if your mom emails you versus like a spam email, you can get back to them both quick, but a spam email doesn't have the high priority that, that your mother might have. So I would say that those are the core of my mindsets. Like you're saying, learning that from football. I believe, sports is a great thing that teaches us kind of in the present moment to where we can really see those mindsets come into play. With that being said, probably the number one thing I would say, the best teacher truly is your own experience. Just going out there, getting the reps, having your own experience, because you can listen to a mentor, listen to this person, listen to me, listen to you, but just going out there and just knowing yourself first and foremost, what you're trying to do, and having your own experience really is the key, I feel like.
That's awesome, Andrew. I really appreciate it. I think there's a lot of value there for everyone listening. So help me understand, Andrew, what led you to want to learn a new skill, right? Obviously, you had the marketing, you had the football, which is great. You had the marketing, you had the sales. Why learn trading?
That's a good question. I feel like it was more of a deeper, just like a purpose thing. And also to just wanting to challenge myself and to learn the skill, like, like it was in sports. And then also too, knowing that, a lot of multimillionaires, billionaires, they all have multiple streams of income and different skills. So that was also something that I wanted to focus on. And just being in these sort of different streams of income, I also see how they all tie in together as well. How like, doing the personal development, the business is the same as kind of like talking to a motivated seller in real estate. You still got to have the marketing, the sales, the ability to, mirror people and things like that. And also too, just sometimes life happens. So, something might happen with a real estate deal, it might not close, but that day I might, have a nice winning trade. So I feel like sometimes when you run into those things in your other income streams, you might be saved by another one. As long as you know how to organize your time and not kind of spread yourself too thin, I definitely think multiple streams of income is something I recommend for everybody.
I hear you. I hear you. So I believe you mentioned earlier that your approach to the stock market is more options based. So would you mind, if you feel comfortable, kind of pulling back the layer on your investment strategy?
Sure. Well, I'm very, very new, actually. I've only been trading options and futures for 2 years. So I would say my main strategy really is just focused on knowing the support and resistant levels. And I base really all my entries and all my exits off of price levels. And it's funny because, like I was saying before, just gaining experience in the market has taught me a lot of things. For example, I really like to play certain psych levels on prices. For example, if I'm sitting down and I'm trading Tesla stock and I see that it's close to or at like 400, 300, 200, something like that, that's normally something that I try to play, as far as like letting the opening market, the opening bell go, and then seeing what the stock will do at that psych level. And I've seen like Normally, if for example it was at 400 and it stays over 400, it's normally a good bull trade. It's normally good for calls. So that's kind of my strategy right now. I trade about 4 days a week right now, and been doing really good so far. Been making maybe about 2 to 3% per trade right now, and just really just trying to focus on ways to actually, it's kind of like real estate and raise capital for that too, because there's a lot of companies out there that will lend you capital to trade as well.
That's awesome, Andrew. And for you, what has been the hardest challenge of learning options and building out your strategy? Like we're talking about, there's so many different strategies. Some work in a bull market, a market that's up. Others work in a bear market, a market that's down. For you, what has been the cornerstone in building out the strategy and then kind of stress testing it over time?
I would say for me, the real cornerstone for me actually was patience. I think the biggest challenge with trading is it's kind of going back to my sports analogies. I would say like real estate and business is they're more like team sports, right? They're like football and basketball. You have teammates. I would say trading is more like an individual sport. It's more like golf or tennis. So it's just kind of you versus you. So the real key to mastering your emotions, I really feel like that's the number one cornerstone that I've had to do. And you could do that really by just like journaling, preparing yourself before the market, like you were saying, back testing certain strategies and stuff, paper trading when you need to, things like that. And I would say that that was the thing that I ran into as I read all my journal entries from trading, is that the number one mistake that I made is I was always getting to a trade early just because I was anxious, afraid I was going to miss it. And I felt like that really cost me a lot of mistakes and made me a lot of money. So I feel like journaling and knowing your emotions around trading is key. And I feel like it would be different for everybody, because it's such an individual thing.
Do you feel like this ties into authenticity?
It does. That's a good question. It does, because a lot of times the markets will kind of reflect your mood, if that makes sense. If you're feeling really anxious, it seems like it does, because in reality, the market is neutral. It's just numbers, and it just moves according to the psyche of the buyers and sellers of the certain stock or the security. And so sometimes we have a propensity to kind of take our emotions to the market, and just we'll kind of see that play out. I feel like I've seen that a bunch of times. I've seen that with other friends that trade as well.
It's really powerful, Andrew. And when you were answering that question, I was just thinking about football and trying to understand, what position you played, because there's always this story you hear about skiers where if they're looking for the path, they'll be able to ski down a mountain and through through an entire forest. But if they're looking at the trees, then they're going to hit a tree. So I want to understand, is there an analogy like that that exists in football? What position were you playing and how would you think about the position you were playing and how you would equate it to how you analyze and underwrite maybe the stock market?
That's a good question, man. First and foremost, I played linebacker in college.
Okay.
So yeah, it's a little
So
bigger back
linebacker, that's
then.
defensive, correct? My
Yeah,
American
that's
football is not
defense.
that good. That's defensive. Okay.
Yeah,
All
that's on
right.
the defense. Like that's the guy standing
Okay.
behind the big dudes in front on defense. So
Okay.
yeah,
So you're just
and to
looking to
kind of
sack
answer,
the guy
yeah, sack the guy. Well, linebackers, I'll give you guys
or
this.
just blocks. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'll give you guys an American football education. The linebacker is
Please.
kind of in the middle. He when
Okay.
it's a pass, he goes back into pass coverage. When it's a run, he goes up and tries to tackle the ball carrier, the running back. So he kind
Okay.
of does both. Whereas the guys behind him, the defensive backs, they're first and foremost focused on the pass, and then the guys in front of them are the defensive linemen. They're first focused on the run. So it's kind of like business too. If you think about that, that's kind of a great analogy on, you can see how real estate and business, how you have to have a team and every person has to kind of play their part. So to kind of give you an analogy there, I see it the same way in business. When you have like, virtual assistant that's getting you motivated seller leads, who's talking to somebody at a title company, et cetera, et cetera. All those people have to do their job and focus on their job. And kind of like going back to your skier reference, when you focus on the trees, meaning that you don't do your job or you're critical of other people or you kind of step outside of your lane and what you're trying to do, that's when you're kind of focused on the tree and you just kind of run into it. It just creates a bottleneck. If you're doing a business and applying it to the markets, because it's just you'll just lose the trade because it's just you versus you. So that's how it applies.
I love it. I love it. It's interesting how things are all interconnected. So for you, Andrew, when you were getting started, I think you mentioned you started wholesaling. Talk to us about the progression of your real estate journey, if you don't mind.
Sure. Yeah, see, so I cut my teeth in real estate investing. That was my first entrepreneurial pursuit. Like I told you, I read the book Nothing Down by Robert G. Allen. And from there, I basically just started really just, I didn't have a car back then, so I called it walking for dollars instead of driving for dollars. And I just kind of applied some of the things that I learned from my first sales job of just going door to door. I was handing out flyers, just trying to talk to people. And I would say that the real key and the real kind of turning point of my real estate journey is learning about like creating systems as an entrepreneur, creating leverage, using other people's money, other people's time, experiences to kind of leverage things. Because by myself, I realized I was not able to create enough volume to, from the output I was putting out to really create the lifestyle that I wanted. And I realized being an entrepreneur, being in real estate, it was not really about the money for me at first. It was really about putting out enough value, adding enough so I can get the money in exchange to live the lifestyle that I wanted to do, because I really, really, truly love being an entrepreneur. I enjoyed the freedom it gave me. I enjoyed being able to set my own schedule, things like that. And then so I really feel like the real crux of where I kind of took off was learning how to build systems instead of just trading time for money, kind of like like an employee. Because to be an entrepreneur and to trade your time for money is the ultimate hell, because you're working for yourself. So you're the one, you can't fire yourself. But, being an employee, you're trading time for money. It's really honestly not that bad if you kind of know your place. I call it a lot of employees get what I call the big boss syndrome. They're employees, but they're kind of think like the owner of the business when you really can't. Where a good employee, they know they get treated well by the boss and they're able to give their max effort. So that's kind of a lot of reflections from my entrepreneurial careers.
Very powerful, Andrew. You touched on a couple terms: OPT, other people's time; OPM, other people's money; leverage. You mentioned earlier the the VAs, the virtual assistants, and throughout our conversation, you've been talking about teams. All of these words are important. They can also be buzzwords. Some of them have negative connotation. Like sometimes when people think of other people's time, they analyze it and view it negatively. Sometimes when people think of other people's money, they view it negatively. Sometimes people have like a negative association with leverage. Help me understand from your perspective, Andrew, why all these different words are good or can be quite powerful if you're looking to scale.
That's a great question. I feel like it comes down to first and foremost having something to give, having a deeper passion, a deeper purpose, having real plans for yourself. I feel like a lot of times, people may not be sure or may not be convicted or convinced or definite in their plans and their purpose. And so I feel like when you have that mindset and try to come to the marketplace and, use other people's time or other people's money, people can kind of feel how inauthentic that is. And they're kind of not that you don't have your own, your own life, your own experiences, your own journey, what you're trying to create. So they really can feel that you're really not authentic. So they might kind of shy away with you. Whereas like, if I see somebody else who's like working hard, for example, like they're working hard in the gym, nobody above you ever talks down on you, So I believe the people that really are able to authentically and in a empathetic way and in an inclusive way, take advantage of, like we were saying, the leveraging of using other people's money, working as a team, are the people that really have some sort of like substance, some sort of real purpose, something that they're really trying to accomplish. I feel like that is the real key on how, because you're right, everything can have a negative connotation and people will definitely waste your time. But I really have found that if you are truly convicted in your own journey and what you're doing, people will definitely help you along the way. And because they say if you want to get something done, give it to a busy man. And I feel like a lot of people, if they know what they're doing and they're high achieving individuals and they see people that are kind of waffling, they'll give them tasks and know how to delegate to those people. And then people will be like, oh, why are you taking an event? It's not really, man. He had a plan, you agreed to it. It's kind of like being a business owner and tax advantages and stuff. People are like, oh my God, why do business owners give, tax credits and all this stuff? Well, they're providing jobs. If you provided the job, we'll give you it. We'll give you the tax benefit. Right. They're spending money. Exactly. So I feel like that's the difference. A lot of people, they're not understanding the, kind of coming with something of value instead of just like trying to just take from people, you know?
Yeah, definitely, Andrew. And I think earlier you were also talking about the goal, and you're saying the goal was to build a certain lifestyle. Help us understand what that looks like and why you couldn't accomplish that, in a traditional 9 to 5 job.
That's a good question. I would say for me, the ideal lifestyle would be to really have freedom and really just have time to do what you want. And how that kind of translates into finances, I would say is like I was saying before, having like exactly what you want. I was actually saying this to one of my clients about visualizing. I told them to, if money wasn't an object, time wasn't an object, visualize like the exact way you would want to live. Like a lot of people don't even just think about that because they feel constrained by family, time, or any. Just think about how you would do it. And I feel like that's kind of the cornerstone of the lifestyle, just imagining the highest, grandest, most spectacular life you can live. And then from there, developing a routine around that and just scaling it down. Because of course, you can't have everything right now, but incrementally you can continue to live a better life. And kind of how that translates over into finances is without having that purpose. I feel like, especially when it comes to money, you can fall into a lot of greed, right? A lot of scams, illusions. So having like a set amount of money that you can live off of, and really just focusing on financial freedom instead of like just large sums of money. So for example, if I, know that $5,000 will, help me live very good, my goal should be to make $5,001 of passive income eventually. And I feel like as I was younger in my personal journey, I was so impatient and just so ready to just make money. I could see it now. That I really thought like a job was like the worst thing in the world. I think I had just read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and I was like, oh yeah, screw a job. But not knowing what I know, but if I could do it over, jobs are great if you kind of know what you want to do in your life, because they provide you that consistent income that can feed your entrepreneurial journeys. And if you have the mindset and the time, you can do both. I actually recommend doing both at the same time. Don't quit your job yet. Just define what you want from an entrepreneurial perspective and use that income to feed that.
Definitely, Andrew. So you mentioned how initially you were moving pretty quick and something changed and you pivoted and now you move maybe a bit slower and you're able to kind of maximize each opportunity. Help us understand what changed. How did you realize that maybe you're moving too fast and maybe moving too fast is part of the problem?
For me, I think strictly looking back at it now, it was just being young, man. It was just youth. What they say, too bad, youth is wasted on the young, right? And that was kind of what I was going through. Really, like I was saying before, I was so young, I didn't really have my own experiences yet. So I felt like I actually was in a good position because I at least knew that I did want to be an entrepreneur. So after that, because I lacked experience, it was just good for me at that time to just go out there and just get those reps, like I was saying before. And I believe through those reps and through that experience, since I've had that, I've kind of just pieced together the exact lifestyle that I want. And of course, I can always get better and it's never perfect, but I'm very passionate about what I do. And I just love waking up in the morning. So that to me, that's the number one sign that, at least you're getting it right. Of course, like we said, there's always going to be somebody with more than you, less than you. And I feel like I was saying before, if you can just focus on playing your game, playing your journey and helping others, achieve their goals, that's where it is. Instead of like social media where it's such it's a lot of unhealthy competition and comparisons and all that stuff. So that's why I was saying before, your uniqueness is your strength, because even if somebody might have this or that, what's unique about you is truly what you should value the most.
Sometimes the most simplest things are the most profound, Andrew. So
That's true.
let's kind of dig a little deeper in the sense that it feels like youthful ignorance, let's call it, and outgrowing that helped you slow down. On the flip side, do you feel like there's certain areas where you need to speed up?
I would say, yeah, in the sense of, like I was saying before, just as far as business building systems, because it kind of takes time to build the system. And like a great personal development person I love, Jim Rome, he says, we don't get paid for time. We just get paid for the value that we bring to the market. So as a young person, I feel like, and especially for me coming with an entrepreneur or me with an employee mindset where you trade time for dollars and you get paid. I was working on something for so long and being so young. I thought, oh, I've done this for a year. I made 100 calls. I knocked on 100 doors. Why isn't this happening? That, like you were saying, that was kind of what was happening to me. That youthful ignorance. Kind of just from there, knowing how to like utilize my time better, utilize my time more efficiently, and build systems around and scale and leverage things and layer things. So I feel like from the physical standpoint, we're pretty much maxed out as time. Nobody has more time. But if you can find effective ways to kind of leverage and scale things to do things faster, that's where for me, I'm looking to get faster. I'll give you a quick example, like going to the gym. So if you're on a cardio machine, instead of listening to music, maybe listening to an audiobook. To me, that's an example of speed in the sense of leveraging, because you're kind of doing two things. If you're reading a book, reading also the audiobook at the same time. These are small kind of tweaks that I've kind of implemented over time, and
That most
they've
people
kind of
don't do.
compounded. Yeah, right. Yeah. And they compound because they seem so insignificant and small, but adding them all together, that's why I was telling you the most important thing is the holistic mindset. When you see it from the whole picture, you value every piece of it instead of, I don't need the money, or I don't need the, whatever it is.
No, I agree, Andrew. So, Andrew, if you were talking to yourself back when you were a youth, whether that's 15 or 25, what advice would you give to help that person make their first million faster?
That's a great question. To any first thing you should do is learn who you are on the inside. That would be my first piece of advice, is to learn who you are on the inside. Learn how to calm your mind. Learn how to sort of befriend your mind, if you will. Learn to gain some space in between your thoughts, if you will. And then two, keep your body as healthy as you can, drink lots of water, eat fruits and vegetables, stay healthy. The other thing I would say is to network with people, so with social media, and I'm maybe dating myself, I'm used to like just going out and just talking to people, playing outside. We did that when we were younger. And I feel like a lot of these social things have kind of been, not taken away per se, but just kind of transformed and formed, like sort of like water to ice. And so I feel like you really have to be adaptable. You really have to be flexible and adjust to the trends so that you can, continue to be relevant in the world. I would also say to learn how to learn, if that makes sense. Always be focusing on education, always be reading a book, listening to an audio book, listening to a podcast like this podcast, I would say.
So, like and subscribe is what Andrew's saying.
That's right. Like and subscribe. That's right. Because you just never know where that next nugget will come from, where that next jewel will come from. So just if you're young, get all the experience that you can. Just unturn every stone, take every chance, take every risk. And then from that experience, sort of gather what you like, what you don't like, what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are. From a holistic standpoint, build a lifestyle from that standpoint. That's what I would say.
I've loved the conversation, Andrew. And I've especially enjoyed it because I feel like there's an undertone of the subtleties of life are more important than we realize. So I wanted to understand from you, is there some subtleties in football as a linebacker that a lot of people miss that really dramatically impacts their ability to get to where you got? Like playing professionally in college is no joke. So I wanted to start there, but then ultimately connect that with a lot of the things that we've been talking about. Because a lot of it feels like just knowing yourself, the small basic things that people don't do the work on, can really help people scale. So I wanted to kind of unpack your mindset on this and your perspective.
Sure. Yeah. I would say playing football, the one thing that was kind of underestimated was just the studying aspect of football. All you have to know as far as like the plays, how to call the plays, and being a linebacker, you're kind of the quarterback of the defense. So a lot of time you're calling the plays, you're setting the coverage. So a lot of people are dependent upon you. And I feel like that could kind of go by the wayside, especially just speaking in terms of football, because football is such a violent collision physical sport. So it's like all about brute strength and all of that. So you would not think that somebody, a lot of times when I was growing up, I used to be called like a dumb jock because people used to, that should be a running joke. Jocks were dumb. But I feel like football players, a lot of them are intelligent, because it's a game, it's a thinking game. And it's a game where it's kind of like chess. You kind of have to like know your opponent, study your opponent, but also kind of know yourself and be able to adjust and adapt. And kind of how that translates over into business is really kind of the same thing. What's underestimated is first and foremost, like your religious or spiritual background, whatever. That's what I'm saying. Knowing who you are on the inside, I think that's first and foremost, however that looks for you, because it's unique for everybody. And two, like I was saying, just your mindset. People don't realize that your brain it's a broadcast and frequency station. So because you are who you are as far as your consciousness, even though your physical reality, and even though it's temporary, even though your physical reality says this, you still have the power within you to broadcast and to vibrate on whatever plane that you see fit for you, whatever you want for yourself. And that's what I was saying by like, try to figure ways to change your energy. If something is not going right, just figure a way to like, just put yourself into a good mood, because you could certainly get in a bad mood for no reason. So why not get into a good mood for no reason? And really with that too, just kind of elevate on that a little bit, is kind of going back to the youthfulness. Do it incrementally, do it step by step. Don't try to jump too fast. Don't go from I hate everybody to I love everybody. Try to take small, vibrational incremental steps along the way, because really life, it's a game, and it's really all about being harmonious and knowing how to play the game, how to be lighthearted, especially when it comes to money. Money ultimately, because there are people smarter with no degrees making a lot of money. There are people with, lots of degrees still making money. So your background doesn't preclude you from making money or not making money. It's just that person knows themselves, studied how to play the money game for themselves, and they're winning their own money game. They're not trying to compare. They don't care who has this or who has that. You'll see a lot of billionaire dudes, they'll be on a fight, but they'll still go to Panera. They'll still have one car, with all the Instagram people think, oh yeah, they balling out. But no, people that are frugal, live within their means. Even as you get more and more money, people I've seen, a lot of mentors, they still do that. They have not changed. So
No, I love that. Again, it's so simple but so profound. Andrew, I've really enjoyed the conversation. You've kept it simple, you've kept it accessible. You've dropped a lot of knowledge for all of us. I especially appreciated the football references, and I appreciate the openness with which you came to the call to just unpack your investment strategy, unpack your personal experiences, and really to highlight, whether it's real estate or trading, there's always ways to grow. There's always ways to build a more diversified income stream, and there's immense value to that. So if this episode got your gears turning, share it with someone who's ready to expand their portfolio. Share it with somebody who's looking to expand their mind and learn and grow. Don't forget to follow MyFinJourney for more stories like this coming to you every week. Thanks, guys. Bye.